Poisonous oxygen, make it hard to breathe. Need to open up my lungs. With these chemtrails and them FEMA camps, they gon' try to take my son. I swear this population ain't ready. These politicians be deadly. I'm trying to wake my people up, but the way the truth's so heavy. Don't let me think about the beginning, no winning, no sinning, unless you already know what the end be.
Shabbat Shalom, family. It's your boy Silent Prophet here with Professor S, and this is Shabbat Talk.
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Shabbat Talk. Today, we're going to be talking about an issue that most people might not necessarily find to be biblical, but I believe it is, and we're going to delve into it. The issue is GMOs. What are they, and are they kosher?
Interesting. Because a lot of people don't even know about GMOs. To be honest with you, before all of this research, I didn't know about it either. But we got some people on the panel that know about this stuff. Starting with my favorite cousin, Sister Jasmine. She know about it.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do know all about them GMOs.
Yeah. We also got Sister Tess, Sister Cindy, Sister Stephanie, and Sister Chanel in the building. Thank you, ladies, for coming on here with us. Man, these women are embarrassing you brothers. They dedicated. They be in here. Y'all brothers will be running away. If I can't be in charge of it, then I don't want to be in it. And I was just reading about pride, man. I was just reading about pride and how it's evil. But yeah.
And pride always comes before a fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we got a special guest that just popped in here, my beautiful wife. Hey. Hey. All right. So, bro, if you wanna get us started.
Yeah. So, I figured we'll go on and start with a little. It's kind of a cute cartoon, but it's very informative. It's made in a way that so that it's entertaining, but also gives you information.
Dope. But before we go to the videos, can you explain what GMOs are? Like, what is a GMO?
Yes. GMO is a genetically modified organism, right? And what that means is that this did not come about by cross-pollination or hybridization. This is something where in a laboratory, they basically take the DNA of a plant and insert a gene from something else into it, right? So this is essentially scientists playing God, right? Trying to manipulate genetic structures of our food, right? And there's probably a lot more implications than we'll get into today, but this will give you an idea of the importance of making sure that you're eating that your diet doesn't have any GMOs in it, because GMOs are not. There's a lot of propaganda out there. But when you really strip away all of the falsehoods, you're left with the conclusion that it's detrimental to your health. And I will go on and suggest a couple documentaries that people can watch in their spare time if they would like to know more, because a lot of this information is going to be beyond the scope of what we can do for Shabbat Talk in the short time we have. This short cartoon will kind of give you an idea and be entertaining.
Yeah, well. This is the one that I got.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So, yeah. I'll hit play and we'll continue on from there.
GMO a go-go.
Hey kid, what's up?
Do you hate having to eat those healthy vegetables? Is nutrition getting you down? Well, cheer up! Help's on the way. Say hello to GMO, genetically modified organisms. You can eat them all day. Not only will mealtimes be extra delicious, they'll also contain oodles and oodles of insect genes and fish genes. Just think of all that extra yummy goodness. But that's not all. We're irradiating everything you eat, so you'll never have to absorb a single nasty nutrient ever again. And don't forget about pesticides. Plenty of those. Yes, sir. Like to know more? Well, let's take a look. Corn is a staple food used in many, many ways throughout the food industry. Growing it takes time, money, and lots of pesticides to protect the crops from bugs, vermin, and fungus. Now, some people think that pesticides made by big biotechs are harmful for humans, animals, and the environment, but that's okay. We've solved that problem. Our GM scientists are putting the pesticide right inside the crops. That's right. Isn't that amazing? The food itself will kill those pesky critters stone cold dead. Now, some people are worried about the bees dying off. Busy bees pollinate billions of dollars worth of crops, vegetables, fruit, flowers, you name it. But some insects are just plain greedy. They'll eat everything in sight if you don't watch out. GMO to the rescue! Thanks to genetic engineering, the plant produces a toxin from the newly inserted bacterium gene. The toxin kills insects, but not humans. The Bacillus thuringiensis toxin destroys the insects' stomachs. Ouch. We have absolutely no testing results to prove that these are safe, but they are. Trust us. We care. And because the pesticides are already growing right inside the crop, GM plants can withstand more weed killer than the old-fashioned organic crops. No weeds, no bugs. More food, more profit. What's not to like? But that GMO goodness isn't just about corn. There's rice, soybeans, cotton, alfalfa, soybeans, papaya, soybeans, oilseed rape. Is that all? Not on your life. GM is the gift that keeps on giving. The possibilities are endless. Just imagine you're a limey Brit trying to grow strawberries in the frozen wastes of Scotland land. Well, in the future, why not insert a gene from a codfish who's built to thrive in the icy North Atlantic? Result, frost-resistant strawberries. Wow, I want it now. The effects of GMO food on humans aren't as tried and tested as we'd like, but there are much more important things that need our attention right away. The population is exploding. How will we feed everyone? We need food security, and we need it now. But just because tests on rats eating genetically modified potatoes showed them growing slower after 2 or 3 generations and developing fertility problems, and some organ development issues, some goody two-shoes scientists and whiny campaigners worry that that might happen to humans too. Well, let's wait and see. In the meantime, the biotech companies can rake in the profits that will fund more exciting GMO experiments. We love farms. We love them so much, we want them all. We want to persuade every potential partner farmer to forget all about that silly organic farming and get with us on the GMO bandwagon. Whenever we change the natural gene sequence of any plant, we get a patent, ASAP. It's our invention after all. Hey, the new GMO plants are our intellectual property. We aim to achieve total control of the seed. Got an organic farm nearby? Great! Soon everything you grow will be enhanced by the altered genes from our GM crops. Isn't nature wonderful? And what better way to spread the GMO goodness around than the wind? Accidental cross-pollination isn't our problem, and it's no excuse for profit loss. And once our genes get into your crops belong to us. Yep, Well, it's our technology. If you're going to use it, you've got to pay. We don't care how it got there. When we own the food, we will own life. So those naughty farmers better not save their seeds for next year's crop. If they do, we'll know. We'll tie up farmers for years in the courts. Farmers will just have to buy more seeds next year, and more pesticides too. It's win-win all around. If you want to fight us, we might just take your farm as a settlement. But we're human. Just. Thanks, Mother Nature, but we'll take it from here. But we're doing all this for you, Johnny. Don't forget that. And if it's all too much for you to take in, don't worry. We've got it all figured out. By the time you're a teenager, it'll be GMO a go-go. We just need to make sure that our army of lobbyists keep GMO labeling off any products. Why spoil consumers with unnecessary choices after all? And if old Farmer Joe decides to fight us, we have a ready-made network waiting to take care of him. Can you say revolving door? Yep. Some judges used to be lawyers who worked for us, and we make sure that they take care of business. And legislation, no problem either. Former GM industry lawyers also work for the food regulation bodies. And we have enough cash in our pockets to lobby any issues all the way to Saturn and back. Some people still think government food regulatory bodies are serving their needs. Hilarious. We are making a killing in India. Literally, hundreds of thousands of farmers have been organically recycled to dodge debts that they owe us. BT cotton doesn't always give strong yields, and bullworm, cotton's main pest, seems to be gaining resistance to our transgenic BT cotton. This can mean bad crops and no revenue for some. We say, once you're in, you're in. However, under Indian law, any debts die with the farmers, so farmer suicides stop debts being passed on to any remaining family. But I'm confident that we can lobby that issue too. When we own all of the cotton varieties, and we will, suicides will be of little concern, because we'll be the only cottonseed suppliers. Duh! Concerns have been raised in Europe over problems with GMO pig feed causing sterilization and growth problems, but we have years of marketing left before that's proved, and we'll find a way to work with the Danish pig farmers banging that drum. So eat up your veggies, Johnny. There's going to be plenty for everyone for the right price.
Oh,
Right. My bad. I didn't realize I was on mute. So, yeah, that's just a quick little video that demonstrates what's going on. There's a lot more to it, though. We're going to go into a little bit of scripture and see what scripture has to say about it. What's everyone's take on that so far from what you've seen?
Hi, this is Tess. Oh, sorry, Ebony. I can wait.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, now I was just going to say I know about GMOs and I've known they were bad for years, but I didn't realize how bad it is. And I'm curious to see what you have to say about scripture, how it goes along with this.
Mm-hmm.
What's crazy is I've been telling people, and I know people think I was just being funny, but for so long, and even when I got hurt, that's why I really switched to organic, because that's when I found out about GMOs and what they're doing to the food. So that's why I be telling people they overprice organic, but you just got to know where to go, and you got to watch everything that you eat, because the vegetables in the store, down to like, the little PR code or the little sticker that's on the vegetables, anything that's below a 9 is genetically modified, especially if it's a 4 or if it's a 3, if the serial number starts on that barcode, that sticker that's on there. So we have to start growing ourselves, or if you can't grow, at least try to shop organic or farmers market, because yeah, it's bad.
Go ahead, babe.
I was just gonna say that I don't know. I've known about GMO for so long. I just think out of laziness, a lot of us just eat what we want to eat. One, out of laziness. Two, out of habit, I guess. But when you start to see your body behave in certain manners, when you start to struggle to lose weight, when you start to, when you have a lot of things just going on with your body that you're like, this is not normal, and no one in my genetic line had these issues, or you know what I mean? Like, it makes you go like, well, what am I putting in my body? What's going on? It makes you want to take action. So, but yeah, it's sad and it's disgusting that they do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like Jasmine said, like, I remember, growing up, my mother, my mom, like, she's organic. Like, my mother will not shop my mother refuses to shop at Walmart. She buys everything at Publix, like everything. And it's so funny because, I'll tell my husband, like, hey, I'm going to Publix. And he's like, oh my God, Publix is expensive. And I agree 100%, because let's be real, if we're going to buy a box of cereal, you might as well buy it at Walmart, where it's the same box of Frosted Flakes, right? So when it comes to certain things, yes, know where to shop. But like, the chicken looks better, the veggies look better, like everything, like even down to the organic. Like, you can go and look at the so-called organic on the shelves at Walmart, and I'm sorry, they don't look organic. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, I feel like I can't trust Walmart. But it's like, you walk in the Publix, and it's like, I don't know, I see it, and I'm like, okay, that definitely looks organic.
Well, don't on Publix too much. Try Trader Joe's. Try.
Oh no, I know you gotta be careful with Publix too, because I've heard some stories with Publix. But like, you know what I mean? Like, you just have to be careful where you shop, period, because
if you're
so bad that it's gonna get to the point.
But if you're going to try to shop on a budget, I'm just telling you, because I do it all the time. Trader Joe's, for as far as veggies, and you can get them organic, is the cheapest.
Yeah. But I think it's going to get so bad, like, and that's why we really do have to get to a point where we start actually growing for ourselves, because it's to the point, let's be real, these corporations, these stores, these chain stores, they're not going to go against the government once things get bad. So the government is going to say, yeah, keep labeling it as organic, but it's really GMO. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it's eventually going to get to. So it's going to get to the point where you can't even trust buying it in the store, because it may be labeled as organic, but you know it's not organic.
Yep, that's why I said or go to local farmers markets where they're growing.
So
yeah, with that, the organic, they've changed the stipulations to where certain GMOs are allowed to be labeled organic because of some technicality. So, we definitely need to be careful. There's obviously, if we're living in society, we get to a point where at some point you can't avoid it, right? But we
Right.
need to do our best to avoid it when we can,
Yeah.
because this stuff is not kosher. It's not good. So, I'm gonna flip a couple scriptures here. We'll go through them. One right here is in Genesis 1:11. Okay? And in Genesis 1:11, y'all can see this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So, and Elohim said, "Let the earth bring forth grass and plants that yield seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind." Right, according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. So now, this word "kind" here is not fully understood a lot of times. The kind of what this is talking about, it's the type of plant, right? So, or the type of, like, the species, right? So, saying it's going to yield fruit according to its kind, according to its kind, not mixing bacteria and fish and goats and spiders, right? But plants. So the way that a plant is fertilized and produces seeds is through pollen, right? The wind carries pollen, bees carry pollen, and the GMOs is actually part of the reason that honeybees are dying off, right? Because they go and eat one of those plants that's been modified to kill off bugs, and what happens? They die, right? But there's a lot more to it than just that. We'll go to so
Elohim is God. Elohim is the Most High.
yes. So we're going to go to Leviticus. Leviticus 19:19. So let's go over there real fast. This is not charged. Okay, here we go. So Leviticus 19, and we're going to go to verse 19. And it says, "Guard my laws. Do not let your livestock mate with another kind," right? So you don't want a donkey mating with a sheep, right? Do not sow your field with mixed seed, and do not put a garment woven of two sorts of thread upon you, right? Now, what we're going to focus on here for the purpose of this is do not sow your field with mixed seed, right? And the reason for this is whenever you hybridize a plant through natural means of pollinization, right? Whenever you hybridize a plant, it loses nutrients, right? So it becomes less nutritious for you, right? If you've got the original plant growing and it's being fertilized by the pollen from the same plant, then it's going to have the same amount of nutrients. Whereas if you mix the pollens, it's going to start to produce less and less nutrients over time, which is what's happened with the wheat, the hybridized wheat, which was intentionally made to weaponize the food supply. We won't go into that because the focus of this is on the actual GMOs. We're not talking about the natural process of pollinization of a plant, right? So with this, if you mix the seeds, then what's going to happen is it's going to cross-pollinate, right? Now, when we go to Deuteronomy 22, and verse 9 here, do not sow your vineyard with different kinds of seeds, lest the yield of the seed which you have sown and the fruit of your vineyard be defiled, right? So when plants get pollinized by incorrect pollen, what's going to happen is the fruit of it, or the nutrition that's in the plant, is going to be diminished, right? This is this seems like a kind of an umbrella thing, and you wouldn't think of it as, oh, that's like super important or whatever, but with the GMOs, the pollen from GMO crops actually will spread to natural crops. And when we get into the documentaries that I would suggest y'all watch, it's going to show in those documentaries that if your crops get contaminated with corrupted pollen from some GMO crops, then somehow the companies are able to come and sue you for it, because you've got their intellectual property in the DNA of your plant, even though you were the one that was contaminated, right? Your field was contaminated. You didn't do anything. It was actually them contaminating your field, but yet somehow the farmers end up being responsible for that because the patent on the gene sequence. So what we're actually talking about with GMOs is more than just a natural process of accidentally cross-pollinating from a different species of plant, right? We are talking about deliberate insertion of foreign genes, foreign genetics into plants. I've got a couple of graphics that I'm going to bring up here real fast just to kind of illustrate this, and as well as showing you how you can do your best to avoid these things, because they are definitely not kosher, and we'll get into why. From those verses, you can see that the mingling, and in fact, where it says mingling, I looked it up in the concordance, and it said it actually means a hybrid. Similarly to the same words used when it talks about the Nephilim hybrids from Genesis chapter 6, where things that were not intended to exist came about through sinful acts. And that's a whole other topic, so we'll leave it at that. But so GMOs, you want to try to avoid these at all costs for multiple reasons. But one of the best ways to avoid GMOs is to look for the non-GMO project verified. They actually, there's some debate as to the legitimacy of this anymore, but they actually, in order to get this stamp on a product, you actually have to send off samples and have them tested and make sure that all the gene sequences in the produce is in fact natural. Right? So if they find some bacteria gene sequences or fish gene sequences, they're gonna deny you the verification, right? My mouse is messing up. Hang on a sec. And there we go. So so right here, organic versus non-GMO. Now, organic is going to be the better label to choose, and of course, you know, we have to call into question whether or not it's really organic. So obviously the ideal scenario is you grow your own food, right? And then you can know for sure, right? But there are very strenuous stipulations on getting an organic label, right? And then as opposed to non-GMO. With non-GMO, if you had a non-GMO label, yeah, there's no GMOs in it, and antibiotics maybe, right? But all this other stuff, you can have synthetic pesticides or herbicides, hexane, steroids in the food, etc. So you want to avoid the GMOs, but it's even better to not have all the other garbage as well, right? When you're looking for seeds, you're going to want to find seeds that are organic, not covered in toxic herbicides and pesticides, or mixed with other stuff. This movie right here, GMO OMG. This is a great documentary that I watched a couple of years ago when it came out, and it really presents it in a way that someone who's never heard of GMOs can grasp. Hey, why is this going on, and why have we not been told about it, right? So are GMOs safe? There's all kinds of studies that have been done that demonstrate that they are not, right? The Most High created everything perfectly. When he made everything, it was all good. It was for our benefit, right? But the foolishness of man decides that they can change things around and screw around with stuff. So and this is an example of a propaganda piece, right? Or is it? Yeah, this is an example of a propaganda piece. You will find a ton of these. It used to be back in the day, if you Googled GMOs, you would find actual information about how horrible they are and the detrimental effects they have on you. Now, if you Google GMOs, you're going to find a whole bunch of articles telling you how great they are, how wonderful it is, how beneficial they are for whatever reason, right? And this is an example of one of the propaganda graphics that they made that tries to tell you, oh, without GMOs, you're going to have lower yields. You're going to have to use more land. It's going to increase gas emissions for the phony climate change, and the prices are going to go up. When in fact, the exact opposite is true. GMOs produce smaller yields than natural organic crops. GMOs require more land. They get sprayed with chemicals, pesticides, herbicides. They've actually engineered the plants to be able to survive the herbicides. That goes the Roundup Ready soybeans, for example. What they've actually done is where the Roundup will kill other plants. The soybeans, the Roundup Ready soybeans, made by the same company that made Roundup. So they get paid double and triple and all this kind of stuff. What they do is they actually, instead of taking in the toxin and it killing the plant, they take in the toxin and they funnel it into the soybean itself so that the plant doesn't die. And so you get all that toxins from the Roundup into your soybeans. Most prevalent GMO crops. Now, if you're on a budget and you can't buy all organic, you want to know what the main GMO crops are so that you can at least avoid these, right? Sugar beets. So that's like whenever you see sugar, very often it comes from sugar beets. It's not actually from cane sugar, like most people would assume, right? Soy, like 94% of all soy grown in the U.S. is GMO, right? So it's got all those toxins, all that poison in it.
For my what's it called? Vegans, for my vegans out there.
Yeah.
And y'all be smashing all the tofu. Mm-hmm. Tofu is soy, my brothers and sisters.
Yep. Yeah. So and it makes sense that these are the primary crops they would attack first, because these crops comprise most of the oils and the additives that are in most foods, right? Soy is, lots of vegans eat soy because, they need to get the proteins and so forth. But 94% of the soybeans grown in the U.S. And this is just U.S. statistics, but excuse me. But wow.
It's not just avoiding, foods that are GMO. Like I was saying, it's getting harder out here, and that's why it's better that we start to grow food, or like I said, if you can, the cheapest way, and I mean cheapest, like you can get a bag of organic red onions at Trader Joe's for $3.99. So that's still cheaper than what a regular store is. You have to go organic, because if you don't, you are consuming GMOs in your food because they're putting it in everything. Cereal is not the same. Like cereal, if you ever look at a box of cereal, Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops, Corn Pops, all those cereals, look on it, it says bioengineered, which means genetically modified.
RIP King Biden.
So you have to watch everything that you eat. Like, it's hard, it may not be, but it's worth it. And I learned that the hard way when I got hurt, because when I got hurt and then the doctor stole my medicine and I got blackballed, I had to figure out ways to get out of pain. And then that's when I started really researching, we are what we eat. So like turmeric, things like that, adding things to your foods, So I had to learn the hard way, but it was worth it. So
absolutely. And we are what we eat, because the proteins that we eat are broken down and absorbed by our body and integrated into our cells. And these proteins fit together like a key, right? They fit together in a particular way. But when you have GMO crops, the proteins that are left over when they're broken down, they don't fit in exactly right. You know what I'm saying? So they don't fulfill the purpose that that they're designed for. So canola is another one that's in pretty much everything. Corn is almost in anything. You read any ingredients on most things, and it's got high fructose corn syrup made from GMO corn. And 88% of the corn grown in the U.S. is genetically modified. When feeding animals, the apparent, not actual, but apparent benefits of feeding animals GMO feed is that they get a lot larger. But that's not actually a benefit. It's a benefit for the company producing them because they get to sell them, because they're selling them by the pound, right? But the nutritional content is substantially diminished. The diseases in the animals are diminished, or they explode. You get so much more diseases. The animals, you got nowadays, these GMOs got chickens growing as big as turkeys. You know what I'm saying? And it's not natural. It's not normal. It would never happen in a natural setting. So you've got alfalfa, apples, pink pineapples, potatoes, canola, once again, soybeans, squash, corn, cotton, sugar beets, and papayas, right? Most of the time when you see sugar in an ingredients list on a product you buy at the store, unless it says cane sugar or evaporated cane juice, it is usually coming from GMO sugar beets. Just to let people know. Here's some examples of a few companies that have voluntarily, this is not required by law. In fact, there was major lobbying groups that prevented the labeling from being required. But these are some examples of companies that voluntarily decided to inform their customers that they use genetic modification in the production of their foods. You got Mars right here. So what really is a GMO? This is where, when I lived in California, I was talking to this dude, and he said that he worked for a company that was exposing genetic manipulation in crops. And
Go ahead and close your share.
Oh, yeah. So I had never heard of this before. Right? I had never heard of genetic. This mouse is messing up. Sorry. Here we go. So I had never heard of GMO crops before, right? And this guy told me he worked for a company that was exposing the GMO crops. And this was back in 2005, I think, 2005. So he said, about tomatoes, right? Tomatoes, they're not very frost resistant. You get a little bit of a frost and your tomato plants just croak. They shrivel up and die, right? He said that in order to be able to produce large amounts of tomatoes without having to worry about a frost, They actually mixed a gene from a fish that lives in the Arctic Circle, and this gene prevents the fish from, it prevents its blood from freezing when it's in sub-freezing temperatures, right? And so they inserted this gene from this fish into the tomatoes and started growing the tomatoes. From my understanding, those tomatoes are not used anymore because they just had no flavor. They tasted like garbage, and no one wanted to eat them. So those aren't used very often anymore. But that just shows what they did. You know, it's much more than taking the pollen from one tomato plant and mixing it with the pollen with another tomato plant and producing a hybrid, right? This is deliberately inserting a fish that was never intended to be able to mate with a plant, right? So fishes are not supposed to be able to mate with plants and produce offspring, right? So there's no earthly reason that a fish gene should be in a tomato plant. You feel what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's just one example of all of this, right?
Perfect.
Plants and animals and people are supposed to produce after their own kind, right? I would argue that all people are the same kind, but that's another topic. But so you don't want a donkey and a camel mating together, right? Now they're not actually capable of doing that anymore. But at the same time, it says clearly in the Torah, don't allow that to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And don't plant.
I'll give you guys an example. So, my favorite animal is a tiger, right? Well, they mixed tigers and lions together
To make the liger. Yep.
to make the liger or the tigon. And the name basically just comes from whichever species is the male. So if the lion is the male and the tiger is the female, then it's a liger. If the tiger is a male and the lion is a female, then it's a tigon. And both of these animals are the hugest cats ever. They're bigger than tigers and lions put together because they're a mixed breed. But since they're huge, they consume way more meat. They're way more dangerous, but they die very, very, very fast. Their life expectancy is like 30% of what a regular lion or a tiger is. They have heart conditions and all kinds of different diseases that they have that they get because they are literally in existence and shouldn't be. So for them to have those types of issues, imagine they're doing the same things with the plants. They're doing the same thing with the crops. So when you
I would say actually worse, because tigers and lions, they're both cats. They're both the same kind, right? They're not the same species, but they're the same kind, right? So they can naturally mate, even though they wouldn't ordinarily in nature. They can be put in a situation to where they can mate, which causes all of those issues from the genetics being all screwy, right? But this is even with the GMO crops, it's even way worse, because mixing two different types of cats is one thing, right? But mixing in fish and spider and bacteria
and rat and all kinds of things like that. So it's a whole different ball game.
Yep. And we finna get into that too, because there is a very specific prophecy in Isaiah about the end times that is actually coming to fruition in such a particular way. It's astounding, right? So
let me quickly play this like 1 minute snippet of what a GMO is, and then we can go into that portion.
GMO, or genetically modified organisms, can refer to a lot of things. But in the case of food, it refers to crops that have had their genes specifically altered to express a certain trait. In very simple terms, this means taking a certain gene from one organism, like repelling insects, and transferring that trait into a plant's DNA sequence so that the plant expresses an insect-repelling trait as it grows. While genetic modification of crops has existed since the birth of agriculture, this new form of genetic engineering is a bit different. In the past, if a farmer wanted to create a sweeter apple, for example, they would need to breed 2 apple trees with sweet traits and hope the next generation might produce even sweeter fruits. This process requires luck and years of persistence. Gene editing, on the other hand, is much more precise. It uses specific genes from one organism to modify the genetic code of another. You know exactly what trait will be expressed. But the process of gene editing in organisms is not new. In fact, it's been honed and tested for more than 40 years. And over those years, genetic modification has become easier and more precise as technology advances. So then, why has genetically modified food become so controversial?
Quick little thing, you know. I watched that video all the way through. That video is a part of the propaganda that tries to justify GMO as being good and misunderstood.
Yep.
But you chew the meat and spit out the bones.
Yeah. And you know, they're admitting that what they're doing. Now they're trying to say that hybridizing seeds is the same thing, right? And try to say, oh, it's been done for centuries. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can breed dogs too, but you're not going to breed a dog and a monkey together. You know what I'm saying? You know, yeah, you can breed a German Shepherd with a Chihuahua, but you're not gonna get a gorilla produce an offspring with a Rottweiler. It just doesn't work, right? And what they're doing is they're forcing it to happen, even though it can't. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So they're essentially playing God, right? They think that they know better, and they think that they can just release this into the food supply without announcing it or letting people know or anything. When I read years back, I read Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About by Kevin Trudeau, which is a great book. I would definitely suggest getting it if you can find it. Which is not hard to find. It was a New York Times #1 bestseller. Great book. When I first read that, it opened my eyes to the GMOs and all the toxins in our food that are slowly killing us, and intentionally, no less. Because if you remember on the first video I showed, it was talking about population growth, and I'm pretty sure most of us in here, if not all of us, are well aware that they're trying to prevent the population from growing, which is exactly the opposite of what the Most High said in Genesis. He said, be fruitful and multiply. He didn't say control populations. He said, no, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he wants, right? But what they're doing is intentionally screwing with the diets of people so that people get illnesses and diseases.
So all the food we eat is what's causing illness. People can think it's not, but it really is. Everything that you eat causes your illness. And they're doing it intentionally, because if they give you the food, then they can turn around and sell you the medicine that's not going to do anything but make it even worse, but can continue to keep you as a customer.
Yep.
All a part of it.
Yeah, it appeals to the greed of the multinational corporations, right? Because they're like, yeah, of course we want to make more money. Of course, you know, how can we do it, right? But then it appeals to the psychopaths in control because they want to reduce the population. And then it appeals to the common people because quite often the GMO garbage, the toxic, poisonous foods are the least expensive, right? So it appeals to everyone in all these different aspects. And so what we need to do is we need to become more wise, right? And avoid this junk, because it's really not good. If we're not supposed to be planting if we're not supposed to plant blueberries and grapes in the same vineyard because of the cross pollination, then why would we be putting spider DNA into a goat? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we're gonna go on with some more different types of GMOs here. We've got this is one way that you can verify, once again, to the best of your ability, that what you're purchasing is not genetically modified, right? If it's got the non-GMO project verified seal on it. Right here, this is genetically modified salmon. Lots of people eat salmon, and I particularly like salmon. I think it's delicious. But if you buy farm-raised salmon, it is 9 times out of 10, it is going to be a genetically modified salmon, right? The genetically modified salmon, as we will see shortly, they have a certain gene sequence from a particular type of unclean sea creature that causes them to grow substantially faster, right? With the GMO salmon, they'll reach 24 inches in 18 months, right? As opposed to the regular natural salmon only gets to 13 inches in 18 months. And so you got 6.6 pounds for the GMO salmon and 2.8 pounds for the same amount of time from hatching out of the egg until harvest, or whatever, for the same amount of time. They're going to, and what company wouldn't say, yeah, I'd rather have 6.6 instead of 2.8? Of course they would, right? Because they're going to make more money, right? But
even still with that, Joel, the farm raised salmon is not where trustworthy. If you're gonna eat, you need to eat
absolutely, no. The best thing is wild caught, because the farm raised salmon, they're fed all kinds of junk. Their meat turns out not looking right, so in order to
exactly
look good, they have to inject it with dyes and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I would not suggest getting farm raised salmon, just to clarify that. I'm just saying that GMO compared to natural is still crazy. Now, right here, I've got another graphic here that just shows some GMOs and so forth. We won't stay on this because it's a lot. I believe this is another one of those. This is another one of those propaganda pieces that says, "Oh, look how good it is," right? But they're actually inserting gene sequences from other creatures. Now, to go back to the salmon, the genetically altered salmon gets substantially larger. Now, why is that? Because a growth hormone from a Chinook salmon joins a promoter from an ocean pout, which is an eel-like fish. Now, we know eels do not have scales. So, where scripture says, you want to eat only things that have fins and scales out of the ocean, right? Eels do not have scales. They're unclean, right? But they've taken a gene from an eel, essentially, and inserted it into the salmon because it prevents or it allows the production of growth hormone in the salmon and prevents the salmon's natural cycle from taking place. Spliced into the Atlantic salmon DNA, right? The new growth hormone directs the gene to produce hormone all year round instead of only in the summer. See, there's natural cycles that our creator set up, right? There's natural cycles. You watch children growing and you notice they go through a growth spurt. That is a natural cycle of our development. But what this is attempting to do is to bypass the natural cycles that the Most High created into us for our benefit. And it bypasses that and causes the fish to grow massive in a short amount of time. Very disgusting. This another graphic showing the insertion of a foreign gene sequence. Once again, I've probably beat this horse to death by now, but Um, this is not like two dogs mating together and producing a mutt, right? This is not a sunflower pollinating a tomato and getting some kind of slight crossbreed of that, right? This is completely foreign gene sequences that were never intended to exist in these types of organisms being inserted in a laboratory, right? So now we're going to go on to some of the detrimental effects that we do know about. There's plenty that we probably have not even fully discovered yet, but some of the detrimental effects when lab rats are fed GMO diets, they get very sick. They become depressed. They have a lot of they become lethargic. They don't want to do anything. They get fat. They gain weight like crazy, and then they start developing tumors, right? And the stomach mucosal barrier is compromised, increased intestinal infection risk, high blood pressure and glucose levels. So we have supposedly we have this epidemic of diabetes now, right? What's going on? Most of the diseases we have these days didn't exist 100 years ago. And most of the food that we eat these days didn't exist 100 years ago. I would say there's definitely a correlation to that. Reproductive issues, low birth rate, increased mortality of offspring, disturbances in organs. All these organs having all kinds of problems. Immune system, blood biochemistry, functioning of the digestive system. Lots of people have digestive issues, and it becomes increasingly clear when you look at the studies that are done what is actually the primary culprit in a lot of these things. So the best thing to go with is USDA organic, because organic is not allowed to contain GMOs. But the second best is having the non-GMO project verified. Preferably, if you could have both, that's what you really would. That's for me. If I'm purchasing anything, I prefer both, but I will go with the organic. This is a list of some brands of GMO foods, or GMO-free foods, rather. These are foods that are organic, non-GMO. And y'all can pause the video and look at it if you want. So you know what you can get. I found a lot of these to be really, really good. Nature's Path cereals. I'll go on and say, my kids love Nature's Path cereals. They make a lot of really good cereals. I like them too. And they're non-GMO, they're organic. And to be completely honest, they're around the same price or even less expensive in a lot of cases compared to the comparable normal GMO and pesticide covered brand. Here are some lab rats that were fed GMOs and the tumors that they developed in only a short time. These are like massive tumors, right? And we could, I think getting into the epigenetics is beyond the scope of this particular talk, but there's lots of epigenetic factors that are passed on to the offspring after consuming these things, right? So, people who are planning on having children, you want to try to avoid this garbage, right? Because you don't want to pass on mutations to them, you know what I mean? Um, you know, the world according to Monsanto. This is one of those documentaries that I wanted to tell everyone to watch. This documentary is absolutely will make you sick to your stomach. Not only because of what the GMOs are actually doing to us, the consumer, but how these satanic companies are actually using the contamination of pollen to essentially steal the land of farmers who didn't want the GMOs there to begin with, right? Now, with GMOs or non-GMO crops and stuff, the price is usually a little bit higher to get the non-GMO version, right? When you go to the store, oftentimes it's a little more expensive to get the organic or non-GMO, and there's several reasons for that. One of the primary reasons is that in order to prevent cross-pollination, farmers have to put a large buffer zone in between the edge of their property and where the field that they're growing their crops starts, right? In order to prevent the pollen from coming over and contaminating their crops. So there's a large amount of land that's unusable. So that's actually what GMOs are doing. They claim that they're allowing you to use more land when in fact they're actually preventing the use of land that could otherwise be used to grow crops, right? But this movie exposes a lot of that. Definitely a good watch if you want to learn more about GMOs. This stuff is insidious, really. I mean, it's very horrible.
Oh yeah.
The like here, I've got some more slides here. Well, not slides, but more graphics. Right here, this is, we just talked about the reproductive system, the reproductive harm of consuming GMOs on an ongoing basis, right? This is testicles from lab rats. This is the control that was fed non-GMO food, right? And this is the testicles from a rat that was fed GMO soy, right? It's absolutely disgusting. I mean, if you think, for any guys out there that like being men, you don't want to eat these GMOs because it's messing up your junk. You know what I'm saying? So here's about the fish and the tomato. Now, there's all kinds of stuff saying, "Oh no, it didn't really. It's all a myth. It's an urban legend about the tomatoes and the fish." What they're doing is they're claiming that because it's no longer used now, because it just tasted like crap, that it never happened. They're trying to make the appearance that it never happened just because it's not used anymore. But there's tons of crops that are still being used. In India, when farmers were done picking the cotton, right, after they got their cotton crop, they would pick all the cotton, and when they were done, they would let their sheep and their goats eat the rest of the plants, right? Because why waste the plant? There's still a whole plant there. We got what we needed from the crop, so let them eat it, right? When they started doing that, the Bt toxin in the cotton, they started having massive die-offs of their sheep and their goats because they were eating that garbage, right? And if just eating a cotton stem would kill off sheep, what's it going to do to you to eat something with the same genes inserted into it? So you want to try to get organic if possible and non-GMO secondary, and preferably both. Crossbreeding is not the same. And it's just not the same. Crossbreeding plants, like that video was talking about trying to get a sweeter apple. If you mix the pollen of a sweet apple with the into the flower or the bud of a sweet apple, then you're going to theoretically produce an even sweeter apple, right? And that's all well and good, but you don't want to be producing it by mixing animal species into it as well. So, would I say this is kosher? No, I would not say it's kosher. I would say it is very much implied in the Bible that we should not be eating this kind of junk. We shouldn't be eating anything that's unnatural, and especially if it's been made in a laboratory. Right?
Facts.
And half of the grocery store is made in the laboratory today.
It is. It really is. I mean, it's all coming from the lab, you know, and it's all this kind of funk in there. Oh, so we're going to go into another scripture real fast. It's very important. We're going to go to Isaiah 66, I believe it is. I believe it's 66. We'll find it though real fast. No, 56. So, here we go. 66:17. Those who set themselves apart and cleanse themselves at the gardens, after one in the midst, eating pig's flesh and the abomination and the mouse, they are snatched away together. Now, I'm going to focus on this right here. Pig's flesh and the abomination and the mouse, right? So we know the swine is an unclean animal, and we know that the mouse is an unclean animal, right? What is the abomination? It's an abomination to mix kinds that were never intended to be mixed, right? So it's an abomination to try to mix a lizard and a rabbit, right? That's an abomination. Or for angels to mate with humans, that is an abomination, right? But what's this about the pig and the mouse? On the surface, it looks like, oh, people that are eating pork chops and people that are also eating mouse burgers, right? That's what it looks like on the surface. But there is a new lean pork. If you find at the grocery store, you might check out next time you're there. You find lean pork, right? Oh, it's so much fat-free, right? The way they made this lean pork is they spliced mouse DNA into pigs, and the mouse DNA that they spliced in prevents the accumulation of fat in the pigs. So then they can say, oh, it's lean, it's healthier, right? It's healthier, it doesn't have as much fat, right? But what they're actually doing is they're mixing species that were not intended to ever be able to mix together and creating a hybrid abomination.
I gotta say, this is why the scriptures are so profound, because people try to deny the legitimacy of the Bible all the time. But when you read scriptures like this, like verse 17, and you like, oh, what is this talking about? Like, pig's flesh and the mouse, like what? Like, that don't make no sense. Then you see the agendas happen in real time. Oh, excuse me. Then you see the agendas happen in real time.
And with this specificity, no less. With this specificity, mouse and pig mixed together.
Yeah. You got the other one that was talking about the rabbit?
No.
Because there was another one talking about mixing rabbit with pig or mixing rabbit with another animal. And they were doing it too. It's crazy. But to go to look at, see how, like you said, how it's so specific, and you're seeing this prophecy, because obviously we're in the book of Isaiah. He's a prophet. A lot of what he said was future prophecies unfold in our lifetime. It's happening in real life, real time. So if the prophecies in Isaiah are coming to pass, we also see prophecies in other books coming to pass. The Euphrates River drying up, for one. right?
Mhm.
That connects to the various prophetic books and the book of Revelations. So this, if you don't know that we are literally living in the last days, then I don't know what book you're reading or what kind of preparation you ignoring. You know what I mean? Because this right here is crazy.
Yeah, the specificity of this, and this chapter is in the last days context anyways, but the specificity of this, I mean, to say eating the pig and the mouse, right? And then today, what are they doing? Mixing mouse and pig together in order to make some lean pork that people think is more healthy for them. Now I wouldn't eat that in the first place, but if I didn't know any better, I might get some salmon thinking this is just a salmon, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know that it's got some kind of eel mixed into
Eel
it
in
too.
it. Yep.
You know, most of the fake Jews agree with genetic modification. They think that, oh, that's great, wonderful, right? Most of the fake Jews do. But there is even several rabbis that came out against GMOs, even from the fake Jews, come out and says that GMOs should not be considered kosher because we don't know the implications of this, and this goes against the Torah.
Yeah.
Right. So you've even got amongst the fake Jew community, which and I don't want to just make it seem like they're all heinous and evil, because a lot of them really believe they're Jews, right? So, you know, and they're trying their best with what they've got and all this kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily something insidious with them, right? But even amongst them, a lot of them recognize, hey, we should not be putting bugs into our crops that we're growing, right? We shouldn't be growing spider plants, you know?
Yeah. No matter what your justification is, right? If you are in a very hot and dry climate, the plants that you're going to be able to grow in that climate are ones who were naturally selected to grow there. Oh, you want to get watermelon in the middle of the desert, so you take the DNA from a camel and you put it into a watermelon, and you grow a crop of a watermelon that's able to retain more water and be able to grow in that type of environment. And in your mind, your justification is, well, we are bringing watermelon to this type of climate, so everyone in this area can now enjoy watermelon. But you crossing stuff that ain't supposed to be crossed. And no matter how you slice it, wrong is wrong. That's like, we all got kids. Well, most of us got kids. Our kids try to justify their actions all the time. Well, the reason why I broke this rule is because of this. And it's always like a stupid reason. It's always a dumb reason that makes sense to them, but it doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things.
Yep. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say everything should happen in the natural order. It's natural for a reason. The Most High created creation and everything's original function perfect. It's perfection. You don't need to mess with it and alter things.
And then what happens is you've got this bacteria that kills off plants that's growing in, or it kills off bugs that's growing in the plants. And then you've got bees that are supposed to pollinate the plants come along, and they're just trying to get some food and make some honey, right? So they go in and eat this crop. They eat the blooms from this crop, and then they croak. And then what happens when you got no more pollinators left, you know? People want to talk about, oh, these bee die-offs. I can't believe it. It's so horrible. But they don't even recognize that they're planting GMO crops that have pesticides growing in it, right? And then, yeah, it's just, and this is more insidious because you can't help. So I actually looked for this story and I couldn't find it. So I was gonna show it on screen. I looked for the story and was not able to find it. But I read a while back There was this guy that always won the corn competition at the county fair, right? Always won. He always had the best corn. And one year, the newspaper was interviewing him after he won, and they said, "How do you always have the best corn?" And he said, "Well, I'll tell you how." He says, "I take my seeds and I give it to all my neighbors so that they plant it too." Because he says, if my neighbors are planting inferior corn, it's going to pollinate my corn, and my corn is going to end up becoming inferior. But if I give them good seeds from my corn, then all the pollen that's around my farm is going to be good pollen that's going to be pollinating my corn, and that's how I always have the best corn, right? And that's really what's going on. These GMO crops are producing pollen, and they are contaminating the genetics of natural plants around them. And the best way to prevent this, really, in all honesty, the best way to prevent this is to cut off their money supply, right? By intentionally choosing not to purchase these types of products, you are cutting off the money supply that is used to fund the creation of more of these abominations. And that's really what they are. They're abominations.
Yeah, but if you noticed, that's very difficult to do, because remember on the like the cartoon that it showed the little 5-way. So it showed the FDA, it showed the legislative building, it showed the bank, it showed all of how it's all interconnected, and the man was explaining it, because everybody's working together. And not to get too off topic, but it all goes into the agenda of population control, control, depopulation. I wanted to play this real quick, and I know that we ain't getting into any jibby jab, stibby stab talk, but all of this plays into the exact same thing, and people don't believe it until they see it come from his own mouth. But oh wait, I didn't hit the button. Oh, I did. It stayed on there. Okay.
Now that's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
And I know majority of my coalition members have heard that plenty of times on occasion, but by the chance, if you haven't ever heard that, that man just literally said we have about 6.8 billion people on the planet. And if we do he said, and it's heading up to 9 billion. So the world's population is growing and it's going to head up to about 9 billion is what he said. Then he said, if we do a really good job of jibby jabs, stibby stabs, healthcare, and all of these other different things, we can
and
lower
reproductive
that.
health services. Now, what's he mean when he says reproductive health services? What's that really mean in their translation? The actual meaning of reproductive health services is aborting babies.
Yeah. Planned Parenthood.
And
That's why
also
they
the
pop up.
food that you eat, so you can't have babies.
Correct. And the sterilization. Sterilization is also a part of it.
Yeah.
But he said if we do a really good job, right? He said a really good job of doing all of that, you can lower it by 10 or 15%. 10 or 15%, when you first hear that, you're like, oh, that's not that much, right? 10 to 15% of $100 is $10 to $15. 10 to 15% of 6.8 billion is hundreds of millions of people. So essentially, he's trying to kill hundreds of millions of people. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the story of the recently this past year, the Georgia Guidestones was destroyed. And I know a lot of people were kind of celebrating that, right? and I understand what the guidestones represented and everything like that, and I do feel like they should have been destroyed. However, there was an intention and a purpose behind that. I believe. I don't think it was one of us that went and did it. I think they did it themselves because too many of us was waking up and referencing the Georgia Guidestones to expose the agenda. Because the literal Guidestones was a monument stating, "Hey, this is what we're trying to do." Because if you look at the so-called artificial commandments that was on the stones, one of the dang things said we're gonna reduce the human population to 500 million. 500 million?
Yeah, that's like a 93% reduction in the current population.
Yes, that's billions of people. But if they're doing it with our food, with GMOs, if they're doing it with our reproductive health care, right? Abortions and sterilizations and all these other things, if they're poisoning our food supply, poisoning our water supply, and doing all of these other different things, that's gonna contribute to help to get to that number, because you can't just get rid of 6 billion people or 6.5 billion people in an instant like that. And then they know
without someone noticing,
without somebody noticing, you have to do it subtly.
You do it in some kind of secretive and sly and crafty way, you know. And
quickly, with the whole like reproductive systems and organs and stuff like that. You know, with this whole new, what was it, Roe versus Wade, whatever it was, with the whole abortions, where a lot of states now aren't supposed to be, or, you know, allowed to do abortions. Like, people don't realize it. Statistically, there weren't that many abortions happening when you think about the millions of people in the world. But
Ebony, there were, because that's another thing people don't realize. A lot of things that's in the food too, and I know it's an abomination, but they use aborted baby fetus products in food. So it's a lot of babies that was being killed because they were using it, because Obama signed it into legislation.
You cut out, so I didn't hear anything you said.
I said, you can't say it wasn't a lot of babies being killed. They were, because in a lot of the food, like especially junk and snack foods, there's aborted baby fetus products in it. So
correct. What I'm saying is when you think about the ratio to babies being killed versus the amount of women that are sterile or considered sterile, like even just alone in the Black community, there's a condition, I don't know if some of you know, I know, Jasmine, you know this because you're a nurse, PCOS. Mm-hmm. It is so rampant in the Black community alone. And it's probably one of the number one things that most of us Black women are diagnosed with, and why a lot of them can't have babies or get pregnant. But all these things that they're doing to the food, it is so much easier. Like when you think about the ratio, they are literally trying to make us sterile.
Yeah.
They are trying to make it so that way we can't have kids. And then you look at this whole, you know, transgender agenda thing where they're like, oh, you know, we're going to try and transplant a womb into a man. Like, you guys know you don't want to do that because it's not going to work. Like, it's not, like, so they keep putting these things out here to distract everyone. But the reality is they just don't want people having more babies. And the problem is you can't, they're not going to do like China did and limit everybody to, oh, you can only have, you know, 2 kids. I think it was China that did that. But
China had a one-child policy, actually.
There you go, one. You see, like, and it's crazy. So they're not going to do that, because then that's just going to cause a riot and uproar. Mm-hmm. So for them, it's like, let's contaminate the food as best as possible to make them sterile. Like, I have seen video clips of them supposedly trying, and supposedly they already found it. I don't know how true it is, but they tried to make a birth control for men. They tried to make something that men could take, so that way it makes their semen sterile, so they can't get someone pregnant.
Yeah. And see, this all goes back to the depopulation agenda. And who are they really trying to depopulate the most, right? That's the thing, you know. When you see the reproductive harm that's caused by GMOs, and you find that GMOs are primarily used to make less expensive products, right? So the cheaper products that you get at the store, the less expensive they are in general, is the more GMOs that's in them, right? And it's all by design. It's all by design. And if you want to talk about the Black community, right? They specifically, and they've stated this is not any kind of, you know, they'll try to put a spin on it if you approach them with it, but in reality, they've stated that they want to get rid of so-called Black people, right? They're trying to reduce that population, right? And when you do the comparison, you look at it by demographic, the most people that are purchasing these products, that's who it is. And what's the, you know,
and then think about it, the Planned Parenthoods, even down to that, Planned Parenthoods are mostly in the Black communities. Why?
Yeah.
Because they advertise it as a form of birth control rather than preaching abstinence or, you know, actually giving them birth control. They put the Planned Parenthood in the neighborhood so it's affordable, so all these people can just easily have access to getting abortions. So that's why I say with the whole thing as far as statistics goes with babies, oh yeah, there's a lot of Black babies. There's a lot of babies that should be born, but they're not born because Planned Parenthoods are in the communities that help get rid of Black babies.
I actually, years ago, I did a study on that, and I looked up where Planned Parenthood locations were, and I looked at it on a demographic map, and they're primarily in minority communities, right?
Exactly right. You'll never find that in a community of people with, you know, high finances or doctors or lawyers. You'll never find one there. But if you go to the hood,
you go to the inner cities and they're everywhere. They're on like,
exactly,
you know, like every 3 or 4 blocks, you know.
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's pretty much it.
No, I was gonna say it's crazy that they do all of this, but they do it in such. Here's the thing: these people are wicked, they're evil, and they're gonna have what's coming to them, right?
Yeah.
That's without a doubt. But while they're here, these individuals are empowered, and in such the way that these people have systematically orchestrated all of this, it's brilliant. It's evil as hell. It's wicked. But the way that they planned it and implemented this stuff is brilliant. Imagine if you could get a product and that product serves your purpose, but that product produces another byproduct that also serves your purpose and gives you profit enough to have another byproduct that serves your purpose and gives you even more profit to do it again, rinse and repeat to all the product gives you enough profit to go back and repurchase that initial product that you got in the first place. So they're poisoning our food, our water supply, everything like that, like I said, right? But they're doing it so that when we grow up, we're having all these health conditions and we're having to fork out so much money to Big Pharma. So Big Pharma's getting their product from all of these conditions and diseases that we're getting, right? And then we're becoming sterile. So we're serving the agenda of the depopulation agenda. And then we're dying, right? And then we are funding the funeral homes and all of the other things that we're funding, right? And then on top of that, if we don't die, then some of our youth, because we talking about who are they targeting? They're going to prison, right? They're going to prison, and then they are funding the private prison system. And it's so crazy in all of these different things. And people say, well, y'all just conspiracy theorists. Why would they be doing these types of things?
Oh no, it's an obvious agenda. I mean, it's not even hidden. They're not even really hiding it. I mean, they hide it behind flowery words that actually explain what it actually is.
But then they turn around and put it in a movie and they tell you what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
that's because they have to.
It's completely insidious. It's so disgusting, and there's an obvious agenda here, and it's a racial agenda. Let's just be 100%. It's a racial agenda with these clowns. They want to wipe out all of what they believe to be inferior races, even though there's not really different races, right? But they want to. That's what they want because they have this agenda, and it's very obvious when you look at how they've manipulated all of the various demographics to consume certain products, and the products that they're manipulated to consume are detrimental to them, right? And then on top of that, you know, Chuck Missler talked about how immorality is what causes social crisis, right? So social crises come from immorality. And social crises is what increases the power and authority of the government. So if the government wants to get more power and authority, what they need to do is they need to generate social crises. But they can't directly generate social crises without looking like the obvious villains that they are. So what they're doing is they promote immorality, which then causes more social crises. And it becomes this endless cycle of them accumulating more power to the detriment of everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you can really you can put that under the category of GMOs, or you can put GMOs under that category. But there's so many other forms of immorality that they're promoting.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can look at any of their music awards shows and all their satanic nonsense there, and it's really the same agenda. It just is in a different form in that aspect.
Absolutely. But to focus back in regards to like our food source, ultimately this Shabbat Talk was to show you what GMOs was and how its effects can be detrimental to your health and your lifestyle. And ultimately, you know, what you want to do is be able to just fully go organic and grow your own food supply, grow your own crops,
growing your own
raise your own cattle, and do all of those different things. But it's also to raise awareness to what's going on. And I wanted to show you guys a article because it's happening, and it's not just our food supply isn't under attack just from GMOs specifically alone, because there are people that's out there that have farms that have food supplies and different things like that that understand that GMOs are bad, and they're being attacked. There has been, and this was since 2022 up to 2022. This is not considering from 2022 to now, but up to 2022. There's been 95 either plants, farms, food processing facilities, et cetera, that has caught fire, been blew up, exposed. We've been hearing recent stories about train derailments, right? In the past few months, there's been multiple train derailments carrying tons of toxic chemicals, right? That has infected the entire land. One was really bad in Ohio. I've seen some newscast snippets about those, and the people are like crying out, like the governor hasn't come to help them out, or even to see if they're okay.
To even go a little bit further with that, most of these plants that have burned down are in, and the most of the train derailments have happened in Ohio, right along the border to Pennsylvania. And if you look at where the organic food processing plants are, as opposed to the chemical laden GMO processing plants, the highest concentration of organic food processing plants is right where all of those happened. It's in the organic food processing plants that they're trying to wipe.
Yep.
Absolutely. 95.
Just to get a little further into it. Go ahead.
You can read the full article if you like. And this is needtoknow.news. You can just type in literally 95 lists, list of 95 US food, and then in Google, and then you can pull it up. But in addition to all of these plants and farms that's being burned down in these train derailments, literally they're literally ordering farmers to destroy their crops and paying them 1.5 times the amount that the crops are worth. And if they do not choose to destroy their crops, they've been forced to get their farming subsidies taken away, which affects the farmers' livelihoods, because farmers, they literally make their money off of their crops, and their crops only bring in the money when they're able to harvest. So farmers make a ton of money. It's kind of similar to teachers, right? Teachers make their paychecks during the school year, and then during the summer they don't get paid. Now they have an option to get more during the school year because they won't get paid over the summer, or they get the option of getting paid less during the school year so that they can continuously get checks during the summer. They're just less, so they have to budget more. But farmers is really similar. During the harvest and when they sell their crops, they get a ton of money, but then they have to literally budget for the entire year because they won't make another profit until they grow that, they replant and then regrow and then reharvest everything to sell it. But they're literally paying people to destroy their crops.
So me and my coworker got talking today, and something came up that I didn't really think about when my dad mentioned it to me. He's worked in the agriculture industry for over 40 years. This year, farmers are being offered 1.5 times the value of their crops to destroy them. They're also being told by the federal government they will not receive subsidies for farming if they refuse to destroy their crops. What does that mean? That means that the farmer cannot afford to provide you with food based upon the taxes the government is levying on him if the government doesn't in turn give him back his tax money to provide you with food. Kind of a fucked up system, but that's how it works. And, well, they're not going to subsidize them if they don't destroy the crops. They'll pay them more than what it's worth, and they want them to destroy it, and they'll still get their subsidies. They're trying to create a food shortage. We've got 8 months to get our own food supply, or we're probably going to be facing mass starvation.
Is it true that the government is paying farmers to destroy their crops? And the simple answer to that is yes, they are.
Initially heard about the government paying farmers to destroy their crops, I thought it was a load of bullshit. Well, lo and behold, we received our destruction notice the other day. So basically there was two options on how to destroy the crop. The government could fly on Agent Orange, or we could manually destroy the crop ourselves. We put too much blood, sweat, and tears in it to let them destroy it, so we decided to manually do it ourselves. Basically it said if we used a lawnmower to destroy the crop, we could receive an extra $600 an acre. Something about the low carbon footprint or something. So that's what we're doing.
I got my letter yesterday. The letter asking you to destroy some crop. Along with the letter, I had to sign for a certified package, which included these two binders, and then of course this 3-ring binder on how to properly dispose of your crops. And as you can tell, it's on government paper. And as you can tell, this here is the affected area in my section of the county, closest town, and of course you can't run away where you live. So from the county tracts, then they break it down into these individual farm tracts that you have to destroy. And you can see the crop or the field.
This is the second machine that I dropped off here for the local farmers. Just want to show you a little bit of each drum. You got 4 of these drums, 2 on each side. Now you can imagine the damage they can do, not counting the blade which you can set down. So this will be the first field that we take care of. So all we're going to do is mash everything into the ground. And then I'm going to go pick up some steel plates, lay them across the road plates, so we can get the machines over there, start on that farm. So the farmers got paid by the government. I don't understand what it's all about, but they got paid. Now they hired us to come in here and just destroy whatever we can. I don't understand how it all works, but we're already paid for a certain amount of time. You can hear the first machine already running out there. So when you hear them farmers saying they're getting paid to destroy everything, they ain't bullshitting y'all. Y'all better start paying attention.
Well, what you saw right there ought to concern you. I was doing exactly what I was told via a letter I got last night in the mail from the Department of Hydrocarbons. They said in order to stabilize oil prices, they need a bunch of oil just dumped. And not dumped on the market, just dumped on lease roads and field roads and things like that. So I'm hooked up to that oil tank, going straight into my truck to get rid of it. Well, I'm going to get fined if I don't get rid of it, they said. So that prompted me to call District Selectman Tony Deloge and ask him about this letter. He said he didn't know much about it, but he would suggest that I follow whatever it says. So here we go. You know, these are some serious times right now. Since January, oil prices have been through the roof. I'm seeing more and more farmers on TikTok saying that the government's paying them to kill their fields. Agent Orange, I saw a guy with a lawnmower mowing down beans, getting paid to do it. They're controlling food. Now they're going to control energy. I don't understand why this is going on. But I tell you what, if they control food and they control energy, what freedom do you have left? Man, isn't this something?
I'm sorry about the music. I'm going to recap. This is the container that was in the video yesterday, and we have unloaded the container. Freight is setting at ports. It is not moving, and we're talking ports around the world. Now, the freight that was on this container was shipped 37 days ago. This is that freight behind me. Somebody is intentionally hindering freight from moving back and forth. There are ports that are stacked. The directive is let it set. Let it set. I reached out to my largest customer, this customer, and that's what I was told. That the directive is let it set. We are definitely going to experience shortages, the likes of which you have never seen.
They're trying to keep me quiet. I need you guys to blow this up and stop scrolling. Control the food supply, control the people. This is what's happening. This is the truth. As a fourth-generation farmer, I am hearing cries across the United States. The Biden administration introduced the 30-30 bill, saying that it is a climate change bill, a conservation bill. But if you look deeper, and if you really research what they're trying to do in Nebraska, it is disgusting. Why the hell does the government want 1.16 million acres in Nebraska? Because 97% of Nebraska is privately owned, so they're taking from farmers and ranchers and hardworking Americans. And by 2030, they want to take 680 million acres across the United States, kill family farms, control the food supply, control the people. Are you guys ready to stand up?
So one of the things we're going to be talking about this week is the apparent fresh food shortage that's going to hit Europe and the UK over the next few weeks and months. This has been completely orchestrated, and it's absolutely terrible that this is likely to be happening right now. There is plenty of fresh food being grown at the moment all over Europe. We have no shortages. Farmers have no shortages, despite the weather changes that we've been having recently. There is an awful lot of fresh produce in the fields at the moment, as you can see behind me. This is purposely going to be bought in bulk and destroyed to create an apparent food shortage. Folks, start listening, wake up. There is no food shortage.
Yo, excuse my sexiness. I have some breaking news. So, right now, the federal government is offering farmers 1.5 times the amount that their crops are worth to destroy them. I know it sounds crazy, but just look it up. Don't use Google because they filter your searches. Use DuckDuckGo and you'll be able to find reliable information about this. Anyway, and if the farmers refuse to do this, then that same government will refuse to give them subsidies. I truly believe they're creating a food shortage, or they're going to. Can't prove it. Just look into what I'm saying, make up your own mind, but just to err on the side of caution, get some food, dried food, get water, be prepared. Even if it's not gonna happen, shit's getting weird.
Yeah, it's real out here. It's real out here. Now that one snippet, I didn't just look for certain things to try to fit my agenda, right? I looked also things to debunk the stuff that I was sharing tonight. The one snippet of the guy who showed the picture of the envelope and the binders and then the maps about him being told to destroy his crop, that was debunked. Because if you look on one of the things, it said 2018, but that video came out in 2022. And so they called him out on his TikTok and he commented and said that it was a joke. But that other stuff, bruh, the other stuff was true. But they do stuff like that, right? They'll do that, tell farmers to destroy their crops, right? And then they'll have somebody, they'll basically pay somebody to do it and say that it's a lie, to try to discredit all of the people who are researching to try to expose the agenda. But pretty much, man, all in all, grow your own food.
Yeah.
Grow your own food.
That's the most ideal. Secondary would be getting organic with the non-GMO label as well. And if you have to get something that's not organic, try to get it with a non-GMO label. I mean, that's there's measures we can take to avoid this stuff. But you know, it's not totally avoidable because you got contamination, pollen contamination, and so forth. But there's measures we can take to at least minimize the intake we have of the stuff that's going to be harming us. You know, and that's the thing, because we don't want to be defiling our temples with these abominations. You know what I mean? And another thing I'll say, look, pray over your food before you eat it too. Seriously, seriously. Pray over your food before you eat it.
Indeed. And pray over it.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was a bug that was on the wall. And Ebony is like the elite bug killer. She be on
You
it.
get some of that diatomaceous earth, man.
Okay. But yeah, does anybody got anything they want to share? Any revelations, anything?
I don't have anything I want to share, but I did have a question. It's like a side note kind of thing. But what did Ebony say? PC, like S, I don't remember what it was, but she was talking about it a minute ago. I guess it's like only in the Black community or something that women get it.
PCOS?
Yes, PCOS. That's what it was. What exactly is that?
It's called polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Oh, okay.
And
Can any woman get it, or is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, women can get it, but it's for some reason it's super common in the Black community.
Well, you know they've got these targeting specific ethnic groups, right? You know, they've got these gene sequences to where they can actually target a toxin to a certain I mean, that could be part of it, or it could also be based on demographic because I mean, you've got when you've got poverty levels disproportionately spread out through different demographics. Of course, the having the cheaper food being the most toxic is going to make the demographic with the most poverty is going to get intake of the most of that food. You feel what I'm saying? So, I mean, there's all kinds of different ways that they all kinds of different ways they manipulate this situation.
And that's also what I was wondering, if it was something that they were causing for women to purposely get.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is they want to reduce the entire world.
Absolutely. It's absolutely on purpose they're doing it.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's a part of demographics. Because in their mind, they believe one race can't be superior than another. So they have to keep the status quo to make sure that doesn't happen. Because there's also a statistic out that says that Caucasian women had, within the last couple of years, the birth rate had decreased. But the birth rate had decreased because of the type of food that they're giving people. It's sterilizing women, and women cannot get pregnant. So it has nothing to do with the fact of what they would. So basically, what they tried to do is now crossing over into all demographics, and they can't control it. What they wanted to try to control is now out of control.
Yeah, it's totally out of control because you can't prevent the wind from blowing. You know what I'm saying? And pollen is carried by the wind.
Well, sadly enough, they can't control the way white women love black men, because black men produce black babies.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was the black population they were trying to control, they lost on that one.
Well,
You gotta understand that's what they were trying to control, because you gotta think about it. Margaret Sanger, she's a part of the whole situation as far as Planned Parenthood was concerned, and her whole agenda was to make sure that there was not enough African American babies, and the white population never, decreased, because there was a statistic told that in a certain amount of time that the African American community would overpower the Caucasian community. So of course that's why Planned Parenthood came into play and things like that. So it's all been a part of their plan for so long.
Well, which it's all in scripture too, because if you look back in Exodus, what did the Pharaoh do? The Pharaoh says, "Oh, well, let's control their population. Let's kill off their men." Now, why did he target their men? Right? Why did he target the male children? Because he realized that the foundation of the family unit is the man.
Is the man.
Right?
Yeah.
So
look at what they're doing here now. They target the men. They're confusing men, or confusing little boys from young ages to believe that, oh, I should be a woman, or oh, I should be that, because if they target the men, then they have no men to support, and women are not going to be defended as a man is to his family, even down to the prison system. You have to think about that. The war on war on drugs. They put the drugs on the street to lock these men up, so they're not a part of the family, so the woman has to work.
Yeah, and then they give all this is getting way off subject, but it's still very relevant. It's all this stuff to try to control, manipulate, and lower the population, which is all exactly the opposite of what Scripture says.
Jasmine, quickly to bounce off of what you were talking about just a second ago, about the prison systems and different things like that, and how the foundation to a home is a man, and how they target the men. The other day I came across a statistic, and I was just like, oh my goodness. But it was saying how a single parent home, when it's a single father home raising kids, they create the same statistics as a two-parent home, whereas a single mother home, you're more likely to wind up where the children wind up. You know what I mean? Like,
yep, I know exactly what you mean.
in prison, or you know what I mean? So, and then they were like, so why is it that the agenda is always to make sure that the mother gets the kids versus the father?
Yeah,
Because if the kids are
that's
better off.
really it. That's
Wow,
really it.
that makes a lot of sense.
The agenda is always that the mother gets the children, right? That's always the agenda.
Yes.
And on the surface, to most people, it looks like, oh yeah, that's the way it should be. But
And don't get me wrong, we have some men out here that do not deserve and don't need any type of custody. But
absolutely.
Statistically speaking, when you have a 2-parent home or a single father home, and we're obviously talking about healthy people, the child is better off with the father versus versus with a single mother.
Yeah.
But that's all a part of the plan. That's what they do. They get these men, they lock them up, they put them in jail. So then the mother's stuck with the child, and the mother has to raise the child. But a woman, honestly, cannot raise a boy. She can raise him to a certain point, but that's what a man is for. So, yep.
I never thought about it on a deeper level like that, but that makes a lot of sense.
That's why I said that although they wicked, it's brilliant.
Yeah, because they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank you guys for being on here today. I appreciate all of the questions and the involvement with the dialogue. Thank you for bringing all that info, bro, because I didn't even know all of that, honestly. Like, I knew like the basics of GMO, but not to that degree.
Yeah. Once again, just you know, if I was to assign a homework assignment, watch GMO OMG and watch The World According to Monsanto. You should be able to get both of those on BitChute.
Hey, you should always do that on every episode. Assign homework because you Professor S.
And GMO OMG is really OMG.
Yeah, it really is. Hey, you've seen it, I guess.
Yes, I have.
Had you seen The World According to Monsanto?
I started watching it, but I need to finish it.
Yeah, watch that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I started watching it, but I need to finish it.
Yeah. I didn't even go into half of it.
Definitely.
I didn't even go into half of it. Like it's so pervasive and encompassing that I mean you just can't even go into all of it. You know?
Exactly. And if you can't do organic, people at least try to support local farmers markets. And also ask them questions when you're there, because I know I do. Like I asked them, what do you spray your vegetables with? What do you do this? Ask them. They're really open to doing it. But support local farmer markets, because the big brand stores, they're not good for you at all. There's no nutrition in there, really at all. So the best option is grow. If you can't grow, buy organic. If organic is too much wherever you are, then try to find a farmer's market. Because then you know it's grown organically. Ask questions.
Absolutely. And if you like the content,
share,
subscribe. Come on, we out here. We out here about to get all kind of community strikes on this video, but it's for y'all.
Yeah, we are. They finna be like, man, this is getting off.
They gonna give me all kind. They gonna hit us with all kind of community strikes.
Cancel.
But it needed to be said.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I hope I didn't say fake Jews too many times.
Right? They're gonna do you like they did Kanye.
Through the red pill, now I really don't know what a friend be like. Dip me in the water, make me new again. I'm so done with lies, let the truth begin. The mark of the beast is the microchip in this wicked ass world so full of sin. Planned Parenthood 5G, fluoridated water, no high C. Agenda 21, they gon' program Georgia Guidestones, COVID-19. It's time to be prepping, I'm grabbing some food. I'm stacking the ammo that I cannot lose. I know I'll survive because I gotta live. I bought me some guns that I'm gonna use. I'm learning to farm and I'm hunting to eat. The firmament dome above the enclosure. Patience I lack, I need to go back a higher. Please give me composure.
Can't wait for this to be over. The end's a little bit close.